Hello again, students. Today we're going to learn about the past perfect. Do you remember in lesson 7 we learned about the present perfect, when we want to express something that happened recently but is related to the present. First of all, did you look at the 4 pictures in the starter on the left-hand side of your page? The 4 pictures of famous stories. You probably recognized picture 3 and 4. But I wonder if you recognized the first 2. The first one is a picture from a story by our famous writer of 400 years ago, William Shakespeare. This story is called Hamlet. It's one of his sad ones, a tragedy. The second one is from a book called Oliver by Charles Dickens. Charles Dickens was a famous 19th century writer who wrote about bad social conditions. The third one, as I'm sure you'll know, is Sherlock Holmes by Arthur Conan Doyle. And the fourth one is Alice and the White Rabbit from Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. Now we're going to read a story about a much older writer called Aesop. You may have heard of him. Aesop was a storyteller who lived in Greece 600 years before Christ. That's 2,600 years ago. Look at the picture of one of his fables. A fable is a story with a moral, usually about animals, to illustrate a point about how we should behave and the consequences, the things that will happen if we don't behave in that way. So the story is called The Bear and the Travellers. What can you see in the picture? Do you see? There's a bear with his nose near the man's ear. One man is on the floor. The picture is called The Bear Whispered in His Ear. Spoke very quietly. And there's another man in the tree looking down. Now we're going to read the story. Can you work out what the moral is? Look at it for a couple of minutes and then we'll go through it together. Now we're going to read through it together. Follow the reading and listen carefully to my pronunciation and how my voice goes up and down. 2 travellers were walking slowly along a country road. They were going to the city because they were looking for work. They were tired and they were hungry. Suddenly, in the woods in front of them, they saw a huge bear. The men were terrified. One of them ran away climbed a tree and hid. Now, there are a couple of words you may not know there. Huge means very, very big. Terrified means very frightened. And hid is the past of to hide. That means go somewhere where nobody can see you. The other man fell to the ground and pretended to be dead. The bear came towards him. It bent down and sniffed him and whispered something in his ear. Then it wandered away. Now, pretended. We pretend when we do something that isn't really quite true. Acting is pretending to be somebody else. And this person is not really dead, he's just trying to look dead. Bent. Bent is when you bend over like that. So the bear hasn't got his head up, he's got his head bent down. Sniffed him. To sniff is to smell. That's sniffing. And whispered something in his ear. Then it wandered away. To wander is to walk away slowly with no particular direction in mind. So if you're in the countryside or on the beach and you're just enjoying yourself, you wander. The other man came down from his tree and went to see how his friend was. The bear gave me some advice, said his companion. He said, next time you go on a journey, travel with someone who won't leave you at the first sign of danger. So, companion. I'm sure you can guess what that means. A companion can be a friend, but it's somebody you do things with. And the last bit there, leave you at the first sign of danger. Now, a real friend, if you are in trouble, will do all they can to help. But a not so good friend will leave you and think about himself if there is any sign of danger, if it looks as if something is going to be dangerous. So what do you think the moral is? Look above the story. It says there are 3 possibilities. True friends are hard to find. Choose your friends carefully, or don't run away from danger. Which do you think is the moral? What is the story telling us about our friends? Did you get it? It's choose your friends carefully. You want friends who will help you when there's danger, not run away. That is the moral of the story. Now look at exercise 3. This is to remind you of past simple and past continuous before we move on to past perfect. They are all what we call narrative tenses. A narrative is another word for a story, and we usually use past tenses for those. So have a look at those. I'll give you 3 minutes and then we'll go through them. Now we'll listen to the recording and see if you were right.
The Bear and the Travellers. 1.
Where were the travellers walking?
Along a country road.
2.
Why were they going to the city?
Because they were looking for work.
3.
What did they see in the woods?
They saw a huge bear.
4.
What did the men do?
One hid in a tree, the other pretended to be dead.
5.
What did the bear do?
It bent down, sniffed, then wandered away.
How did you get on with that? Look at exercise 4. We have 5 extra bits of information. They are reasons for the actions that follow or explanations. They each come out of the story. Now, in the story, you will see there are brackets. So, after they were tired, you have brackets, and you must put one of those clauses into the brackets to improve the story. And then there's another one after, and they were hungry. So you need the reason why they were hungry to go in there. Which of those 5 do you think goes in the first bracket after they were tired? It's the first one. They were tired because they had walked 20 miles. Now, that's the reason. It's in past perfect. It's related to the reason they were tired. See if you can do the rest of them. I'll give you 2 minutes to look through those, and then we'll listen to the recording again and see if you were right. The script is also on the screen, but listen carefully.
Tape script 9.2. The Bear and the Travellers.
2 travellers were walking slowly along a country road. They were going to the city because they were looking for work. They were tired because they had walked 20 miles, and they were hungry because they hadn't eaten all day. Suddenly, in the woods in front of them, they saw a huge bear. The men were terrified. One of them ran away, climbed a tree, and hid. The other man fell to the ground and pretended to be dead. He had heard that bears don't like eating dead meat. The bear came towards him. It bent down, sniffed him, and whispered something in his ear. Then it wandered away. After the bear had gone, the other man came down from his tree and went to see how his friend was. He wanted to know what the bear had said to him. "The bear gave me some advice," said his companion. "He said, 'Next time you go on a journey, travel with someone who won't leave you at the first sign of danger.'" The moral of this story is, choose your friends carefully.
I hope you could follow all that. Do you agree with the moral of the story? I'm sure most people do. Although we have our close friends who we expect to help us in difficult times and be there for us, but we have other friends for fun and for other reasons. Right, let's look at the grammar spot. What tense are the verbs in bold? They are all tenses that are used in the story. They were looking for work, they saw a bear, they had walked 20 miles. Can you work it out? They were looking for work. Were looking is past continuous. Continuous means it happened over a period of time. They saw a bear. Saw is past simple. They had walked 20 miles. Had walked is past perfect. Do you remember present perfect would be have walked? So we've changed the have to the past of have, which is had, but walked has stayed the same. They didn't eat all day. They were hungry. How is this expressed? i.e., how is it written in the story? What tenses are used here? They were hungry is past simple of the state verb to be, because it is finished. Past simple when something is finished. They were hungry at a time in the past which is finished. Why? Because they hadn't eaten all day. They hadn't eaten before they were hungry. This is the reason why they were hungry. So 3. The past perfect expresses an action before another time in the past and is related to it. Remember, present perfect is related to the present, to now. In the same way, past perfect is related to a past event. So we often find it used with an event expressed in past simple to say what happened before. Now you can look at the note in 9.1 under use, which explains that as well and gives you another example. It says we use the past perfect to express an action in the past which happened before another action in the past. But it is related to it. When I arrived at the theatre, the play had already started. Had started is past perfect, but the main action is arrived, past simple. Do you see how it worked? You can put it the other way round. The play had already started when I arrived at the theatre. It doesn't matter which way round it goes usually. Let's look at how we form past perfect. Do you remember? To form present perfect, we use the present form of have plus the past participle. So I have done my homework, for example. Done is the past participle of do. He has written a book. Written is the past participle of write. Remember, the past participle of regular verbs is the same as the past simple. We just add ed, but is sometimes different in irregular verbs. In all perfect tenses, it's the have part that changes tense. The past participle always stays the same. Therefore, in past perfect, we change have or has to had. So, look back at the story with the extra bits from exercise 4 and see how it works. The main narrative, the events in the story that happen one after the other, are in past simple tense, and the related actions that happened before are in past perfect tense. Study those and see how it works. Look at 9.1 again. Do you remember how we formed negatives and questions with present perfect? Well, it is similar for past perfect, and you can see that for yourselves how we do it. So you've got the box that shows you negatives. I hadn't arrived, and then the questions, so the not goes with the had, not with the main verb. And with questions we reverse had and the subject. So had he left already? So we're just putting the subject second instead of first, as it would be in a positive statement. He had left already. If somebody asks you a question like that, you can give a short answer. So, had he left already? Yes, he had. No, they hadn't. 2 examples. Look at point 2. We use the past simple to express actions in the order they happened. So, action 1, the bear went, past simple. The next action, the man came down from the tree, second action. Both past simple, one action after another. But look at the second bit. The man came down from the tree is the second action after the bear had gone. That was the first action. So it's in past perfect. It's the reason the man came down from the tree, but it happened before. So, came down is past simple. The reason which happened before is past perfect. Now, you can look at the others yourselves and work them out. Look at 3. It says, if it is clear that one action was completed before, it isn't necessary to use the past perfect. Well, in formal English you would use past perfect, but these days people just say, I tidied up after everyone went home. In proper English, after everyone had gone home. So you can use either when you're speaking, but only if it's obvious that one action followed the other. Tidied up, if there is a big mess, people have left things all over the room, we tidy them up afterwards. We put them all back where they should be. So now we're going to look at another of Aesop's fables, The Boy Who Cried Wolf. I expect you were told this story even if you didn't know it was from Aesop. Look at the pictures. There are 4 pictures. We've got a boy who's looking after some sheep. Looks like Wales. We've got sheep all over the place in Wales. And in the second picture, he's running to the other workers and crying wolf. And they come to help. But in the last picture you can see a wolf on the hillside at the top of the picture and a lot of dead sheep. And the young man looking alarmed or scared. Now I'd like you to read the story. And in the story you have to choose between the 2 joining words given. So the first one, you have to choose one day, while or because. Which of those 2 joining words is correct for that bit of the story? See if you can work it out. Guess otherwise. I'll give you 5 minutes to do that. And then we'll look at those joining words. They're called conjunctions. Now listen to the recording of the story and check if you are right. Listen carefully for those conjunctions, the joining words.
Tape script 9.6. The Boy Who Cried Wolf.
Once upon a time, there was a shepherd boy who looked after the sheep in the hills near his village. He thought his job was very boring. One day, while he was sitting under a tree, he had an idea. He decided to have some fun. So he went down to the village and shouted, "Wolf! Wolf!" at the top of his voice. As soon as the villagers heard the boy, they stopped work and raced to the hills to help him. But when they got there, they saw nothing. They returned to their work. After they'd gone, the shepherd boy smiled to himself. A few days later, the boy did the same thing again. He ran into the village and shouted, "Wolf! Wolf!" The villagers didn't know whether to believe him or not, but they were worried about their sheep, so they had to help him. They went back to the hills. Again, there was no wolf. They were angry because the shepherd boy had lied again. But he just laughed. Then, the next day, just as the sun was setting, a wolf really did appear, and it began attacking the sheep. In terror, the boy raced down the hill to the village, shouting, "Wolf! Wolf!" Although the villagers heard his cries, they did nothing to help. This time they really didn't believe him. The shepherd boy climbed back up the hill to look for the sheep, but the wolf had killed them all. He was so ashamed of himself that he sat down in the moonlight and cried.
So what is the moral of this story? The moral is that you should not lie, because if you are discovered telling lies, people won't believe you even when you tell the truth. So let's look at exercise 3 together. When did the boy have his idea? The answer is while he was sitting under a tree. We use while to explain what was happening at the time he did his action. So the action was have an idea. He was sitting under a tree. You can see in the first picture. So while plus the past continuous to explain the action that was happening when the main action occurred. So the background information was while he was sitting under a tree. The main action of the story in past simple is have an idea. Number 2. When did the villagers race to the hills? The answer is as soon as they heard the boy. Now, as soon as means directly afterwards, immediately afterwards. So they heard the boy and then they raced to the hills. So both in past simple, except in the question it's did race. Do you remember? But it's still past simple. The third one. When did the shepherd boy smile? Past simple question again. After the villagers had gone. So, had gone, past perfect, related to why the shepherd boy smiled. So that is past perfect. So, number 4. When did the wolf appear? As the sun was setting. So that means at the same time. The sun was setting, and at the same time the wolf appeared. In the story, they give you the option of as or before. As means at the same time, and you know what before means. So, we'd have to say before the sun set. So, in that sentence, the wolf would appear earlier, when the sun was still high in the sky. Now let's look at the grammar spot. Grammar spot 1 says conjunctions are used to join sentences or join two parts of a sentence. He wanted to have some fun because he was bored. So because introduces the reason why he wanted to have some fun. Those could be two separate sentences. He wanted to have some fun, full stop. He was bored. They're two separate sentences. But because they're related, we join them together with a conjunction. Next one. Although they were all busy, they stopped work. Again, that could be two sentences, but they're related, so we join them together with although. Now, although introduces the part of the sentence that makes the main action in the sentence seem surprising. So the main action is they stopped work. Now, when people are busy working, they don't usually stop. So the action of stopping is surprising. Yes, if people are very busy, they often don't stop to do something else, like help a colleague. But is used to contrast one thing with another. For example, his mother won't come to sports day, but his father will. That's a contrasting idea. It's not explaining a surprising action. Next one. No one believed the boy, so he climbed up the hill. So is used to introduce a result of something else. So we've got the two parts of the sentence. No one believed the boy. The result was that he climbed the hill. So we just say so. You don't have to say the result was. Just so he climbed the hill. Now, So is a conjunction of result. Because is a conjunction of reason. So you could say that sentence differently. We could say, because no one believed the boy, he climbed the hill. But you do need a conjunction to join the ideas. So remember, because is a conjunction to explain a reason. So is a conjunction to explain a result. Look at grammar spot 2. When, while, before, after, as, until, and as soon as are conjunctions of time. Now, I'm sure you know when. We usually use that for a particular point in time. While we are more likely to use for a period of time. Before and after, you know already. I think you probably know as. We met as in When Did the Wolf Appear? You could use that as and while to mean similar things. While the sun was setting or as the sun was setting. Both would be acceptable. Until, you know already. And as soon as, we learnt a little earlier, immediately, or as soon as possible, as quickly as possible. So those are all conjunctions of time. You will learn others as you go along. So yes, we've got the example. As soon as the villagers heard the boy, they went to help. And while the boy was in the village, the wolf killed all the sheep. So you see, while is a period of time. He was there for maybe 5-10 minutes, a short period of time, but it's not a point in time. So now try and do exercise 4. You should only need a minute for that, and then we'll go through them together. Did you get all those? We'll go through them quickly. The first one, they didn't find the wolf, so they went back to work. Number 2, they helped the boy because they were worried about their sheep. 3, although they heard his cries, they didn't do anything to help. I hope you could follow that, and it will help you to understand the sentence structures better in future. Goodbye for now.